I can't believe what we just saw in episode 7, but I have a question I need y'all to keep in your mind as we go through this whole episode, which is, what was Mark actually reintegrating in this episode? Y'all could go ahead and leave comments now what you think, but for real, keep it in your mind the whole entire breakdown. But first, do not forget to join the Foster fam either on Patreon or as a YouTube member, so you can join a community of over 400 people and get access to exclusive videos where I can answer your questions, talk about your theories, and we can break down these shows together. All right, let's get into this.
I'm sorry, who are you?
Gemma.
Watch this.
Who are you? Who are you?
Question, who are you, repeats over and over and over again throughout this show. And just remember, it's the first piece of dialogue we ever hear. Central dramatic question of the whole entire show. We start off at this blood drive, and blood seems to be a very important part of this episode. Between this, then also the nurse that opens the doors for Gemma has to put her blood into each door. I also saw a tweet that said people think that the Lumen logo isn't water, it's blood. That would be interesting.
Themes of religious conversion in Tolstoy's The Death of Ivan Ilyich.
Oh my God, spoiler alert.
So I looked up a summary of that book, and it actually was a spoiler alert for this episode. So it's a book about the denial of death and, battling your own mortality. And in the final moments, this character has a spiritual awakening and accepts his mortality. And that seems to be what happened to Mark at the end of the episode. It looks like he's dying the whole entire time, but instead of dying, he has a spiritual awakening. And what's interesting is the doctor's remarks about the book.
The death of Ivan Ilyich. Let me guess. He dies at the end.
I feel like that really symbolizes how everyone at Lumen just doesn't view these Annies as people with souls, which is what Bert's partner brought up in the last episode, actually, was that he believes Annies have a soul. Honestly, it seemed like even a separate soul from the Audis, but that can still be saved. Him kind of just saying, oh yeah, of course, this person just dies. Nah, but it's not about that. It's about something deeper. But just like Lumen overlooks that, so did he. But while we're on the topic of this book, it seems as if O&D is building things from Gemma's life to put in these trials she's going through. For example, this book. This book is something she had as an Audi in her real life that they also brought in here. The music that's playing in this scene is the same thing. And I don't know if that's a form of the torture they're putting her through, like this song that was playing the same night that was happening, she has to listen to in this room, and it doesn't seem like she has control over it. I wonder what that's about. But the things that in O&D that they built were the cards, right? The cards that showed up. She says she loves flowers. And then also O&D in the last season had the little flower water pot thing. And then people noticed they were also making a machete in O&D, and I'm wondering if they're making Gemma kill the goats in there.
Gemma? Where did you go?
Notice the eyes, what she just did. She just came back to reality right there. Remember that. Come back to that in 1 second.
Mark. Where'd you go?
So there's the parallel there between Gemma and Mark just in this episode with that type of narrative. But what's interesting to me is now that we know that Gemma is split into a million different Annies with James Egan, you know how it seems like there's multiple people inside of him and people were thinking it was the consciousness of all of the Egans that came before him? What if he's also has a ton of different Annies and he's kind of cycling through them in his mind?
Fetid moppet.
Father?
See, when she said father, it's it reminded him who he actually was, and he was scared, he came back to reality. I think when he said fetid moppet, he was actually somebody else. One of his other Indies took over. And I think that's what kind of was just happening to Gemma somehow in that scene. Now that we know what the testing floor looks like, I want to show y'all something. The first season intro shows Mark going to the testing floor. All the different iterations of him, the balloons, all of that. Now that we know you can have a bunch of different innies split up inside of you. Now these intros make sense with all these different Marks. Like, I feel like Mark doesn't just have one innie. I feel like he has a ton. And I feel like he's been on the testing floor at some point, somehow. Also, in my last video, I was talking about how I feel like somehow reintegration actions end up affecting the past. Look at the clock of the wall in the intro. Back to my original question, what is Mark actually reintegrating? It seems as if his reintegration actually has not so much to do with himself, but some type of connection with Gemma that they share, because all of these memories that he's living, he should have memory of. So either he's reintegrating, and that means that Audi Mark doesn't have these memories and they've been severed from him somehow, or is he somehow reintegrating with Gemma and actually seeing these things through her point of view, or some type of shared point of view? Because when the nurses asked where Gemma went, it transitioned right into this scene, right? When Devin asked Mark where he went, it transitions into him seeing Gemma. It transitions into this scene of her walking in this library. Now, mind you, when he started his reintegration, what keeps popping up is Gemma for some reason. And what does that have to do with merging Innie Mark and Audi Mark together? Like, shouldn't Audi Mark be seeing Helly places and Innie Mark be seeing Gemma places? But like, they're both seeing Gemma. And so somehow reintegration has something specifically to do with Gemma, in my opinion. You know how when Gemma's been reading off the facts in the first season, it's been like foreshadowing some things? Watch this and listen to this.
You've eaten today, honey? Yes.
Real quick, I just noticed this. This is a goat chart. What? What? But back to what I was going to show you.
Your Audi knows a beautiful rock from a plain one.
A beautiful rock from a plain one, and she's holding two different rocks in the trial. Is that going to somehow come back to Mark later on?
Done your reading? 50 pages.
So some people said that reminded them of like a Scientology machine where they use it to measure how close to like spirituality someone is or something like that. And what's interesting about that is someone left a comment on one of my videos saying that when Drummond brought up an obligement session to Helena, they said that that sounded like Scientology. So they were onto something.
If you were caught in a mudslide, would you be more afraid of suffocating or drowning?
Drowning.
Another parallel with Helly, because Helly was just getting drowned by Irving, right? And what's also interesting is water gets brought up with Irving himself because he was in the Navy, and in her wellness sessions, the water thing got brought up with Irving. And also what's interesting is now that we see that they're doing all these tests on her, I think the wellness sessions were a test for Gemma. Like, they actually weren't for the other innies working there. It was something for her. And I can't figure out what exactly they're testing in the wellness sessions. Leave that below what you think about that. Leave a comment about that. There's something really interesting about this dentist part I don't see people talking about. So what's weird is she actually doesn't experience anything. We see her writing the notes and her hand starting to hurt, but it skips him actually doing stuff as a dentist, like in her mouth, and it just goes right back to Gemma. I thought that was interesting. Like, did she go under anesthesia or something? I don't know. Like, that's strange, right? With the dentist being one of the trials. Are these all prior test subjects like Gemma? What's up with the teeth? So here we get a look at every single file that Mark has completed. I just realized something. So Gemma's on iteration 25, and he has 24 files here. So that means Cold Harbor would be the 25th. So that's where that comes from. So seeing this was wild. Also, does someone live right here on the right? Are there multiple people in there in the testing floor? And yeah, seeing this and seeing all the files and all the doors was wild. Like, I couldn't believe it. But it also made something come full circle that I told y'all it would.
And then Lumen.
Yes.
And they make their doors in the house. It's fucking hubris.
And y'all see all those doors in the testing floor? I knew that was going to come back. I knew it. I said they must make some type of special doors. And it has something to do with activating the innies when they go in the doors. But they were making all the doors for the testing floor. I knew it. Now, here's something I want to know. Is Gemma going in the doors that only Mark made files for? Or is she going to all of the rooms? Like, has she been to every single one of these rooms? Because I feel like that would mean very different things.
My mouth hurts.
Which room caused your mouth to hurt?
The first
Wellington.
I wonder if in like every room, because we see later her hand hurts from writing all of those notes, and I wonder if it's like she only has physical sensation in only some of the rooms for some reason and not others. I feel like that's why he's asking, which of these rooms, because I think what they're trying to do is have it be so that there's no spillover from the Annie to the Audi. So they want the chip to be, where the Annie is its own separate living like identity, so that in all these terrible situations like we saw in the pregnancy in, where she could just be her Annie so she doesn't have to go through the pain of pregnancy, doing that, but in all these different situations like flying, right? And that's why they're doing that like flight simulation thing, and then they're like refining it or something so that the Annie can do it like staying balanced and having no spillover into going back to the Audi, something like that. I think this also explains the scary numbers thing. The people refining are putting their own traumatic experiences and refining it in number form to make this simulation in the testing floor. And it's like Gemma's living out everybody's traumas, not just hers. And so the refiners are going through their own memories that are scaring them. Then right here, she passes by Cold Harbor and she said this is the only room she hasn't been in. And I just saw this transition where Cold Harbor transitions over Mark's face. I didn't even see that before. And then Drummond and the doctor make it sound like when she goes in Cold Harbor, she's going to die. That's what it sounds like. And it seems like the only reason why she's not dead yet is because Mark hasn't finished it, which that brings up something interesting to me. Let's go to this real quick.
He's stuck at 96%.
The nosebleed set us back.
This is a gigantic part of this episode nobody's talking about. So technically this is in the future. This would be Christmas at some point in the future. We don't know where it is in winter yet in the present, but this is at Christmas because she goes in the Christmas room. And what's really interesting here is he says the nose bleeds, plural, set us back. We've only seen him have one nosebleed. Thing is he talking about just Mark, or have other people in the office also have had nosebleeds, meaning that multiple of the refiners are reintegrated? And so what's interesting in this episode is it does go past where we currently are with like present Audi Mark, because we see this, and then also the doctor later on says that she's been in there a while and Mark remarried last year and has a daughter. So if we take that for what it is, then when she runs into Milchick later on in the elevator, that would mean that it's like a year and some change after where we currently are in the show, which I find that to be kind of interesting. Now, back to the original question again. What is Mark reintegrating? Watch this transition. It transitions him reintegrating into an elevator. Is this a version of Annie Mark? Or is this like a memory they severed from him without even letting him know? And also in all these memories, there's like this filter that makes it look like an old movie. And they wouldn't necessarily have to do that just to show us the past. Something's telling me that either this is another version of Annie Mark or something like that, or they severed these memories from him and he's remembering it all. Because if that's not the case, what? Reintegration is just him like remembering things he already lived through? Like, what does that have to do with reintegration? You know what I'm saying? Like, that doesn't make sense. It makes me feel like they may have been experimenting on Mark and Gemma together at some point or something. Because look at this.
You ready?
Huh?
It's time.
Locked and loaded.
Now remember, this is all through Mark's frame of reference of being reintegrated. So he's in the hallway, opens it up, and now he's like in his own test simulation. Like, what? It just doesn't make sense. And then also at the fertility clinic, check this out.
Hi.
Yeah, I know y'all see the doctor right here. He's been plotting for a while. But remember, Mark and Gemma are there, and they both gave blood together at the beginning of the episode. And also, once again, how Petey said with reintegration, the past and the present kind of blur together at the same time and mess up time's relativity. In that scene, Gemma opened the door in her present form. In the severed floor, she opens the door and it goes into her past, which makes it feel like she's reintegrating. Obviously, she's not reintegrating. So like these memories popping up that we're seeing for the first time? Who's seeing these for the first time? It's got to be Mark, right? But how does he not remember this? Also, like I said earlier, some of these rooms seem to be things that Gemma hates. So, she says earlier in the episode that she doesn't like writing thank you notes. Then they make her write a lot of thank you notes, things like that. What do y'all think this could be?
Last night you said you liked ants.
I said I like plants.
Plants.
I hate ants.
They better not be torturing Gemma with some ants. Come on now. Don't be doing that, Lumen. Okay, now we also have two interesting lines of dialogue that are connected that I want to know what y'all think could mean on a deeper level, or if it's just playing on the theme of severance and one thing being like two different things. Y'all tell me.
It was like the death zone of Everest, like Chomolungma.
So I looked that up, and Everest and Chomolungma are the same mountain. It was just that Everest is the Western name that took over later in time. So she knows like the indigenous original name, but she says like Chomolungma, like it's two different mountains. Stay with me.
Did you get the Denali thing I said?
No, I'll look at it.
Denali is another indigenous mountain name that Westerners changed too. It really does go with the severance theme, right? That colonization, having a different name for something, even though it's the same essence, right? So it does go with the severance theme. I just want to know if there's any more to it than that. Also, what is the Denali thing she sent him? I feel like that's going to be important somehow. This transition right here was so powerful, but there's something about it that not a lot of people are talking about, and I want to know what you think it could be. So in that transition with the sounds and what's going on, it sounds like it goes like she's underwater, and then also there's like fire flickering in her face. And I wonder if it's her remembering her death, right? I know she hit a tree. I don't know if there was water over there. I know Mark hinted at the fact that her body was burnt up. So maybe there was like fire, because it's like literally flashing on her face and you can kind of see it in her eyes. Yeah, something's there. She's remembering something. Back to the original question too. What is reintegration here? Because we have Gemma going in and throughout time like she's the one reintegrating. How? That scene seems to be the trauma that seems to have kind of separated Mark and Gemma as a couple, which the complexities of that, if he actually ends up getting Helly pregnant, will be wow. But also we kind of see Mark throughout this whole entire process being rather cold to Gemma, not really being emotionally available. He's very matter of fact. Besides going to the testing floor, this was also one of the biggest reveals of the episode, so let's talk about it.
We encourage her to forego further suicide.
Lots to talk about, but first, doesn't that look familiar to you?
That uprising. Under my literal nose unfolded a human drama of danger.
And what's hilarious is he said under his nose, and literally like underground, under our nose, like there's literally like what? Like doppelgangers doing this? Also, is that the doppelganger or the doctor? So all these people look like the doppelgangers. I don't know if these were the people on the Ort bow. Also, I feel like it's 100% confirmed now that the Ort bow was fake, because we see how Gemma somehow with the chip, they're able to like simulate these things for her. Ort bow was probably in that team building place on PD's map, and like they can just make people see whatever they want to. But yeah, who are these people and what are they doing? Well, what's interesting to me is the wire that came down is like this thing, and it's a server, it looks like. And what I want to know is what's on that server. Is it all the files? Is it what's making those simulations for Gemma to go through in all of the rooms? Now, another thing that does prove that time is passing is you notice all four of them are here. But later on Christmas Day, because he has the Christmas sweater on here, so he's going to go see Gemma in that room, Irving's no longer there. Irving's doppelganger person. So time is passing in this scenario. Now, also what I want to know are these people programming the macro data refiners? Because Drummond asked if the severance barrier is holding, and I don't know if he's referring to Gemma or if he's referring to severed workers on the severed floor. I don't know. And it seems like all of the different departments are doing things for Gemma. And does everyone have doppelganger type people, or is it just macro data refinement? Now we also get a clue that Gemma's been trying to escape for a while before she tries again at the end, because listen to this.
She's easy to like. She's fond of me too, of course.
Didn't she try and break your fingers?
And he has to mean not one of her innies, that it had to be Gemma that was trying to break his fingers. Once again, also another kind of parallel with Helly, because Helly tries to chop her own fingers off to leave. And once again, while we're talking parallels, in Helly's first episode, she's trying to escape. In Gemma's first episode, we see she's trying to escape. And what's really interesting is Mark calls Devon Persephone at the beginning of the season, but honestly, Gemma resembles Persephone more than Devon does. So Persephone, Greek mythology, but for this, all you really need to know is Persephone's the daughter of, it's either Demeter or Demeter is Persephone's mom. That's important. But Persephone got abducted into the underworld, ends up marrying Hades. But what's interesting is, you know how in this episode we finally see the sun and it's not snowing. Well, in Greek mythology, when Persephone goes down into the underworld, Demeter makes it winter, basically. Ruins all of the crops, everything like that. And then when she comes back up, that's spring, that's blooming. And it's funny because Gemma loves flowers and they're blooming and all that kind of stuff. So that's definitely the analogy. Like, I think Gemma is who resembles Persephone here. Also, talking about Devon, she had a weird change of heart about Cobell.
I could call her.
Who?
Harmony Cobell.
Why would you do that? She runs the severed floor.
Not anymore, she doesn't. She might know how to get in the cabin. I mean, fuck, she might know how to get to Gemma.
She's Lumen through and through. She was raised by them. She's a soldier. She will turn you over to them. Both of us. Everything I've done to fight, gone.
I have custody of his brain now. You don't.
So she was super suspicious of Cobell. Now all of a sudden she wants to call her to save her brother. That's odd. Also, her saying, I have custody of my brother's brain now. Also, interesting choice of dialogue. And with Ragabi, see, she was more worried about her work being gone than anything with Mark. And this is what I was saying last episode. It's clear that she's like overly obsessed and she needs to gain something here from what's going on. Like, she's doing it for her, we just don't know what it is yet. This part right here where Milchick just sends her back was just so heartbreaking. Oh my goodness. But there's a couple interesting things here. One, if time really is passing, this means that Milchick is still working there over a year later. Two, the idea that when the testing floor, when you go down, you turn back into your Audi and not a different innie is pretty interesting.
Do you feel yourself gravitating towards one room or another? Maybe you felt things behind those doors you never felt with Mark. Maybe I've seen it.
So outside of his own like or maybe even love for Gemma, I think this is also somewhat of a test that they're trying to do. Something with the chip, because earlier he was wondering if she was feeling anything bad essentially afterwards. Now he's wondering if she's feeling anything good. Comments again. What do y'all think he's going for here? Or is it just like he wants to know if one of her innies loves him? Also, you know how we always talk about how the Lumen character speaks so weird? Gemma brought it up directly.
Kier will take away all his pain, just as Kier has taken away yours.
Can you please just talk like a normal person?
First of all, Kier didn't take away her pain. But secondly, I feel like Gemma said that in a way where she knows they're not normal. Like, something's wrong with them too. Back to the reintegration question. We see once again him reintegrating and it going back to this memory, which tells me he must have forgotten it.
I don't know. It looks like two guys fighting.
No, it's the same guy fighting himself, defeating his own psyche. Ego death.
And obviously that's the theme of Severance, right? Everyone's fighting their own psyche because they're severed, all that kind of stuff, ego death. Those are the O&D cards, obviously, the one Dylan stole. But I'm telling you, these memories must have been wiped from Mark somehow without him knowing, or maybe even willingly. I don't know. First of all, what amazing acting, cinematography, all that. Heartbreaking scene. I was in my feels. That was absolutely amazing. But look how it transitions once again. Goes from that past back to Mark, and he opens his eyes like this is everything he was just experiencing this episode. And he's crying. So he's either crying from remembering like what happened to Gemma, like as far as the cops coming up to his door. But once again, what's that have to do with reintegration if he already remembered that? After watching that episode, it seems like the reintegration process has something to do with Gemma. And next week we have Cobell's solo episode, and I know that's going to give us a lot of answers and even more questions. I guess just moving forward, I want to know why he never finished Cold Harbor if it actually was a year later from where we currently are. Like what actually kept him from finishing it. But yeah, we have tons of questions, tons of theories. Y'all leave it all below in the comments because everything's wide open right now. Like for real, like so much is going on. And if you love this video, please go ahead and join the Foster fam either through Patreon or becoming a YouTube member to support the channel. I would greatly appreciate it. It would allow me to keep making content like this for you. If you enjoy it, please go ahead and support. And until next week, I'll see y'all.